Welcome to the College Football Bros, the podcast ranking Big Ten head coaches. And now, here are your hosts, Michael, Ryan, and Trey Newman.
Welcome to the College Football Bros podcast. I am Michael Newman, and I'm joined by the brother below me.
That's me, Ryan Newman.
And by the other brother to my left, your right.
And that would be me, Trey Newman.
But Michael, I'm actually really above you if you think about life, you know.
I would disagree with that, but we can have this conversation off air. Is that fair?
I'd rather do it right now. You're right here right now, Mike.
No, I would rather not. All right. Be sure to follow us, everyone, on Twitter at CFB Bros, on Instagram at College Football Bros. Subscribe in your podcast app if you haven't already, and on YouTube. We got a new look here on YouTube that we're happy to be showing off to everybody. And by the way, thank you to Sarah for putting all these images together. So
it's been awesome.
All of this is thanks to her. Also, let us know where we're wrong in this episode on all of our social media.
I know it'll be difficult to do, but
I know because we're perfect, but you can try. Okay, let's get into the Big Ten, which of course is our topic this episode, and we'll start with a very easy number 14, Ryan.
Yeah, Mike Locksley, good old Mike Locksley at Maryland. He's 6-40 as a head coach.
That's not great.
Can we move on to number 13 now?
I mean, we could. Anyone else have anything to say?
I mean, after the first two games, though, last year, I was thinking, maybe.
They were top 25.
Yeah, maybe he's got something.
They beat a disappointing Syracuse Dino Babers squad.
I know, but still, they started out on fire. And then, boom, 1-9.
Then they had one other game that they perked up randomly in the middle of the year. I don't remember what, but when you lose 50-7 to Nebraska, you got some issues.
Yeah. The one thing you thought you were hoping for him is that he would be an ace recruiter. And the first full recruiting class was fine. It was 31st, but that's actually worse than a couple of DJ Durkin's classes.
Yeah. DJ was doing well.
And that was supposed to be Locksley's claim to fame because he knew the DC area and to be able to recruit. But at least early, it's not happening.
Not much to be excited about.
Yeah. So moving on to another guy that I don't think many would be shocked to see down this low, number 13, Lovie Smith. I mean, honestly, in my opinion, I don't know. He's very fortunate. They had that huge upset against Wisconsin where Wisconsin just kind of buckled in the last couple of minutes. And then Michigan State blew their big lead to Illinois, 28-3. I mean, so those two games obviously saved Lovie's job. But they finished the year, they lost by 3 scores to a 2-win Northwestern team. They got dominated in the Red Box Bowl. At the end of the day, he's 15-34. They're not recruiting well. I don't see it happening at the Illini with him.
No, I'm not falling for this last season making a bowl game. I mean, obviously it was nice, but I still have very low expectations going forward. And last year they were a little bit lucky. You mentioned in some of those games, also lucky with turnover margin. It was by far their best turnover margin of the past few years. So yeah, they were still 79th in Sagarin. It's not as if he made them a good team. They were just good enough to barely get to a bowl.
To scrape out 3 wins in the Big Ten to go bowling. 3 cupcakes in the non-conference and 3 somehow wins in the Big Ten. So
sorry,
it's kind of the Indiana recipe.
Yeah, I love Lovie though. Got a great beard and seems like
not
a great
in this
guy.
photo.
Not in this photo. Yeah, you're right. It's
clean shaven.
I know. We got the
NFL Lovie.
Yeah, we got the official. Picture day.
Yeah, you can tell this is when he was.
Yeah,
he was looking good, clean cut.
He gives a crap at this current juncture.
I like the beard look better. I disagree. I think the beard makes him look.
Do you like the beards on guys, Mike?
Yes. Why not? All right, moving on. Oh, Ryan's got a beard. That's why you asked that. Yeah,
I don't have.
You're looking great. You're looking great. I like it.
A little scruff, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't usually go for the scruff, Mike.
I don't. No, I rarely do. Clean shaven.
You don't really have a good scruff, do you?
Okay, that's rude. I don't know. It's okay. It's okay. It's not the worst. Like I can grow a beard, but
Trey just doesn't ever go.
I don't. It gets itchy. I don't like it. If
you
I
could
go
do
more
it though.
than a few days, I need to shave.
Yeah, Trey could.
You've got a great.
I definitely
shadow,
could.
You know.
Yeah, he does.
Okay.
I this is the point where it's like it's starting to get the itchy point where you're talking about, Trey. I can't let it go longer than this, and then it just gets annoying. So I'll probably shave like either tonight or tomorrow, but it's not. I know what you mean by the itchiness. I don't know how people with those long beards do it. Maybe it gets to a point where it just like doesn't itch anymore. And
yeah, I think it
like,
softens up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
Great
it was
college football talk.
great little
Yeah.
excursion there. But number 12, we have Mel Tucker at Michigan State. All things considered, it was a fine hire given the timing of D'Antonio leaving. They were kind of put in a really tough spot. So to get Mel Tucker, that's fine. But he's a big unknown. His first season at Colorado, he kind of just did what they were expected to, basically going 5-7. He did bring in a pretty good recruiting class there. So there's one positive that kept him from the bottom of the list. What do you guys think?
The reason why I actually had him 13th.
Behind Lovie?
Yeah.
Oh,
the outrageous amount of money that Michigan State had to pay him is just doesn't go well for what his resume, I guess, shows. They overpaid a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's possibly. Just he's a big unknown because obviously he was a good assistant and he had that 1 year at Colorado. He, nothing made me think that he can flourish or he can't flourish. He had moments and the players seemed to like him. I did have that. I still have that image ingrained in me where they were playing SC and he decided to punt against SC when he really should have gone for it on a short 4th down in SC territory, and they punted and SC ended up driving down the field and beating him.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's happened to a lot of coaches, but Sparty fans though seem encouraged by him. So that's at least promising for them.
For sure.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, let's move on to number 11. We have our boy Tom Allen from Home Improvement.
That's Tim.
T.
Close
Allen.
enough.
T. Allen.
Okay. You kind of look like Wilson right now behind your
your
pop
true.
filter.
Hey,
we can only see
neighbor.
the top of your face.
Yeah. Trying to speak into the
Kevin Wilson.
Yeah. All right. Anyways,
there we go.
Yeah, we all agreed on Tom Allen at 11. He obviously moved up a couple spots than we would have had him the same time a year ago, winning 8 games this past year. It's kind of, we'll see. I mean, if he backs it up with another 8-win season, my goodness, we'll bump him up to like number 2 or something, like really, really high, because that's incredible in Indiana.
I don't know if we'll bump him that high, but
okay, well, you know what I mean. Well, 2 years of 8 wins in Indiana deserves better than 11th.
True. I think he's got a good shot of it too.
Michael Penix, there's some excitement there. For sure.
He does have Michael Penix. I'd be surprised if he won 8. They won some close ones this year, but I mean, he's done fine. He's been through 3 years. He had a couple 5-7s, and then now had an 8 win. So he's kept them competitive.
Yeah, and oh man, they really just gagged with their bowl game. They should have had their 9 wins against Tennessee, but he's done more. Last year really kind of showed something to me. Like he's done more than I thought he could.
Yeah. If I'm going devil's advocate here, because I think Indiana fans are probably very positive on him right now, and I am too, but I worry about losing Kalen DeBoer at offensive coordinator because he was only there for 1 year, I believe, coming from Fresno State. And I don't think it's a coincidence that was the 1 year where Tom Allen had a good season. So
yeah,
we'll see. We'll see what the offense looks like without him.
Fair.
Yep. All right. Moving to number 10. This guy is there's high positive and negative energy with him, but it's Greg Schiano of Rutgers. This is a case of the return of the guy. He was the one that had Rutgers hire before he had left. And I mean, considering how bad Rutgers has been recently, there is a lot of genuine excitement now there. I mean, it's it's amazing how quick it can turn. He's starting to recruit better, as well as it's been there. He knows what it takes to win there. It's not going to be easy, but I think he's at least going to make them respectable. Not going to be competing for Big Ten titles, but respectable.
Yeah, I mean, he's totally reinvigorated the program. I mean, as much as you can when we haven't played any football yet. But yeah, the recruiting is the big thing here. He did a good job closing out the 2020 class, and that 2021 class is off to a really good start. He's already got 5 of the top 13 players in New Jersey committed. So I just think he has a good blueprint. He's trying to kind of put a fence around New Jersey as much as he can. He's even got a 4-star included in those 5 commitments. So I really think he's going to make them respectable again. I think he'll make a bowl game within the next few years.
I disagree. I don't think he's going to be able to make a bowl game in the next few years. They are so far behind that it's going to, if he can do it at all, I'd be surprised, but it's not going to be in the short term. I mean, it's just, I look back at this as I feel like it's more of just a desperation hire, and I don't feel like it's going to work out. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like the Schiano name carries the same weight. I know he's got a decent start right now with the recruiting, but when you first start is when you're hottest. That's when you first should be like, okay, hitting the striking gold, and perception of the program, perception of you as a coach turning around should be the best. Your recruiting should be pretty darn good. I don't know. He's not. They're 7th in Big Ten right now for 2021. It's going to fall.
Well, I mean, yeah, they're the worst team. That's pretty good. And
they're going to fall. They're going to fall.
Well, obviously they're going to fall, but still,
yeah.
It's
so they're going to be like 11th, 12th, and I don't think it's going to work out.
Like no one saw what Matt Rule was going to do at Baylor in a couple of years. Like, I'm not saying Schiano's going to do that, but like Schiano at least has some history there to prove that he can at least build them up. So I don't think it's that outrageous to think that he'll improve them. Not that that would
hard
be
not
hard
to
to do.
I mean, they'll get better, but no doubt about that. But I'll just say I don't think they're going to make a bowl game with Schiano.
Man,
yeah,
our longtime listener Rutgers Todd is hating Ryan right now for sure. I'm sorry, Todd.
Sorry.
Trey and I are trying to make the argument for you.
Sorry.
Okay, moving on to number 9 on our list. It is Pat Fitzgerald of Northwestern. And I was actually the highest on Fitzgerald, which I don't necessarily feel great about because I don't know. I mean, he's one of the hardest coaches in the Power 5, I think, to rank because he's undeniably done a great job over a long period of time at a place where it's not easy to win. And so I guess ultimately I just decided not to overreact to 1 year. I know we had this conversation about another coach in a previous episode this week. I think it was Dave Doran. But anyway, last year was terrible. But he went to a bowl game the previous 4 years. He averaged 9 wins in those 4 years at Northwestern. So we're not having to reach back too far in the distant past to see a bunch of success. It was just a couple years ago. So I think he's a little bit underrated on this list, even if I wouldn't be super excited if he was my coach.
I think the fact that the offensive struggles just hit an all-time low last year is what makes it kind of worrisome, especially for this coming year. I mean, they need Peyton Ramsey to be the savior and just like turn that thing around because they were one of the historic worst offenses ever last year.
It was pretty bad.
It was horrible. So it's, they lose some key players on defense. I don't know. I mean, I get what you're saying. With the years past, they've been able to have some good wins, and he's kind of made a living on close wins. He's had a remarkable record in that type of in the one-score games in his career at Northwestern. Yeah. Maybe the tide is turning on the other direction now.
Ryan was in the same boat as me, obviously, as I was very much influenced by last year. But he's one of those guys that he could move up or down a lot based on solely what happens in this upcoming season. Because if he rebounds, it's like, oh, well, then I'm like, okay, well, then last year was just an aberration. I do think highly over him overall because he has a pretty good resume at Northwestern. But if it happens again, then I'm like, yikes.
Yep.
Okay.
Number 8. Oh boy. Didn't think we'd get to him this quickly. Scott Frost, there he is. Yeah, man, what a difference a year makes. I mean, it's going back a couple years ago, or to the end of for his first year. You know, they finished 5-7, yeah, but it was a very strong finish to the second half of the year. A lot of momentum. Thought the second year was going to be great. Favorites to win the Big Ten West, not just by Nebraska fans, but by the media. And they lay an egg and go 4-8. There's really no excuses on that 4-8, honestly. I mean, there was enough experience coming back from the team. I know the offense really only had like 1 or 2 seniors that played, but the majority of the guys on the team, on the offense, had played before. You had Martinez coming back and experience on the O-line. And then the defense had quite a few seniors. So there was no excuses. It's just a horrible year, a bad coaching job. I think we all could agree it was just like we were watching the games and we're just kind of perplexed as to what's happening, some questionable calls and decisions and stuff like that. But there's not a whole lot of positives just to go right now. And then to throw it on top of it, we lose our best prospect out of Nebraska to Minnesota, committed the other day. So it's pretty crappy right now. I got to be honest.
I think when you went over the seasons, I think you flipped the seasons accidentally. But either way, they still didn't go to a bowl.
Oh yeah, my bad.
4-8.
They still didn't go to a bowl either year.
I flipped the numbers, but the perception was...
Yeah, no, I understood what you were saying. But it's clearly the understatement of the year as far as Nebraska is concerned, that 2020 is going to begin to dictate fully how his legacy will be and if he can turn it around.
Yeah, I think we got to bring up what he did at UCF. Like, obviously, if you're just basing it off Nebraska, maybe putting him 8th ahead of a guy like Pat Fitzgerald is some people would think is crazy. But the job he did at UCF was one of the most impressive accomplishments in the last few years in college football. Of course, the year before he took over, 0-12, or maybe it was 0-11, but whatever it was, it was 0 wins for sure.
0-12. It's been 12 games for quite a few years now, Mike.
I know, but for some reason, sometimes they have like hurricanes will cancel a game. So I don't know if that happened that year. Regardless, not important. But yeah, and he led them to an undefeated season. So, and he's kind of set the foundation for them to be a powerhouse. So that still counts in my mind.
And I don't want to completely sound like a Nebraska homer, but like it's a fact that he inherited nothing from Mike Riley coming to Nebraska. Like there's no NFL talent on that roster, as we've seen in the last few drafts. Like, so he's kind of starting from scratch. So he does get a little bit of some leeway as far as his future, but we'll see.
And we're only 2 years removed from him being arguably the most sought after free agent head coach in college football. Like Florida wanted to hire him, right? So
yeah, everybody wanted him.
I think obviously you got to revise your thoughts of him downward, but there's still that upside there.
Yeah. I haven't given up yet.
Some of it.
They'd better make a darn bowl game. Or it's gonna, or else Nebraska fans are going to not even support him.
Yeah, it's heading that way.
Like they were when he was a quarterback in '96 when we lost Arizona State.
But Ryan digresses. All right. So moving on
Nebraska
to a school with similar colors. Number 7, Paul Chryst at Wisconsin. Now, I was probably the most optimistic on Chryst, or the highest opinion of, and Michael, you were actually the lowest of us three. So
how in the H did you put him 9th, Michael?
Well, I will tell you.
So yeah, lay it out, Mike. What's your rationale?
So he's had some incredible seasons for sure at Wisconsin. So you got to give him some credit for that.
3 New Year's Six bowls in 6 years, or in 5 years, excuse me.
It's true. It's true. But
3 out of 5.
Here's my rationale, and this is just the way I think. So I think Wisconsin just has the infrastructure and the culture under Barry Alvarez to where, to some extent, I just think they're going to be good no matter who the coach is. And my evidence for that is that we've seen what a couple of coaches who have done really well at Wisconsin have done elsewhere. Let's take a look at Paul Chryst, the guy we're talking about. Not that long ago, just right before his Wisconsin tenure, he was at Pitt for 3 years. They went 6-6 every year. He was worse than Pat Narduzzi is there now. So that still counts to me because it was so recent. And then you have Brett Bielema, who of course went to 3 straight Rose Bowls his last 3 seasons at Wisconsin. He goes to Arkansas and has a losing record there overall. So, at Wisconsin, the way it is rolling now, obviously Paul Chryst is performing and I expect him to perform much better than the 9th best coach in the Big Ten. But I'm trying to, I said this on a previous episode, put these coaches in a vacuum. So if I'm in a vacuum, who do I want as my head coach if I'm, South Carolina has an opening? I'd rather take a guy like Jeff Brohm than Paul Chryst. That's just the way I look at it.
That is I understand where you're coming from on that. I do. But even at Wisconsin, there's still, it's not like it's just tailor made to make New Year's Six games. I mean,
no, you're right.
It's not like they're, I don't know, Florida or Alabama where everything's just set up easily. You still got to do it and perform and coach. So I think to have them 9th is too low. That's why I agree with your sentiment. Like, if you look at the resume as far as 3 New Year's Six bowls in 5 years, you would think that's like number 1 or number 2
right
in your conference. I mean, you're elite, but Trey and I are kind of on the same line. Is like, well, he is set up for success, but you still got to give some credit to him a little bit, Mike.
Sure.
He's done better than I thought he would, because I really didn't like him a whole lot at Pitt, but it obviously there is a system in place that he's benefiting from, but he's run with it.
Yep.
Okay. There's our Paul Chryst debate, and we move on to number 6 on our list. And it is Jeff Brohm of Purdue, the guy I just brought up. So I was the highest on him. And first off, you got to start at Western Kentucky. He did an amazing job there, taking them to an even higher level than Willie Taggart and Bobby Petrino did. And then he goes to Purdue. And prior to him getting there, they were in really bad shape. I'm going to read off their SP Plus rankings the previous 4 years. 106th, 90th, 96th, and 105th. Very bad. And I always like when a coach can make an immediate huge jump. And that's what he did there. Year 1, they were 48th in SP Plus, made it to a bowl. So I think you're really proving your coaching chops when you turn it around so quickly, kind of like Scott Satterfield at Louisville, as we talked about in the ACC. But then year 2, 44th in SP Plus, another bowl game. So really we're just dealing with one bad year here last year. But his quarterbacks all got injured. His star players got hurt on both sides of the ball. Of course, Rondell Moore on the offense. So I can easily forgive it.
Yeah, it's not hard to figure out that last year was just an unfortunate occurrence for him. The Rondell Moore injury and the quarterbacks, that just derails you. I mean, your best player on your team and then your quarterbacks get hurt. They had so many different revolving doors on their team last year, and they were competitive. It's not like they were horrible. They still had some close losses and everything. And there was 4-8. I mean, if they had a normal year injury wise, they would have made a bowl game. I don't have any real doubt about that. So maybe Jeff Brohm, I could have put him up 1 or 2 even more than I did. But yeah, I like Jeff Brohm. He's a great coach. Recruiting has been pretty darn good for Purdue,
it's been
man.
Very good.
So yeah, he's good. He's good. I like Brohm.
Yeah, I might have been a little too influenced by just last year. I knew about the injuries, but it's like he's gone from 7 wins to 6 wins to 4 wins. There's a story for each of those. You can't judge it solely off wins. I get that. Obviously, this past year with all the injuries that we talked about. But overall, I'm optimistic on him, and I love him as an X's and O's guy. But he'll just have to maybe have a little bit of a bounce back year to get back in Trey's good graces.
Oh, I'm sure that's all he's hoping for right now.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to numero 5. A very colorful gentleman. PJ Fleck in Minnesota. Michael, you put him 4th, which, is pretty high, I guess, but I understand it. He was great at Western Michigan. Now he's kind of got the boat rowing here in Minneapolis. Recruiting has started to improve a lot. I already mentioned the Nebraska guy he got, which hurts a lot.
All right.
Kind of kicking Frost's butt. But Trey, not quite as old. He had him at 6th a little bit. Not too big of a difference, though, on him. He had a great year last year, and it just seems like he kind of, as as interesting of a gentleman as he is, he just kind of seems to know how to build a program. So, 5 is pretty darn high when you consider there's a lot of good coaches in the Big Ten.
I mean, last year he really proved his chops. Like I wouldn't have had him 5th or 6th a year ago, but he's really proven that he can build a program from the ground up. I mean, heck, they beat Auburn in the Outback Bowl. Like, who saw that coming? That's very impressive. Now, can he build on that? Can he maintain that success, or even maybe take it one step further if he could? It's tough at Minnesota, but they have a lot of returning production. There's no reason they can't. Overall, I am impressed. It's just when you start to get to the upper half of the Big Ten, there's some big boys in coaching.
Yeah, and they won some close games this year.
They were fortunate this past year.
They could have been 7-5.
The whole narrative would have been different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do give him credit too for he's done it twice now, of course, because he built Western Michigan up to going 13-1, which is a pretty crazy job. So, yeah, he just outside of that elite tier. I think, like you said, Trey, if he has another season or two like this, then he's gonna jump into that group with Jim Harbaugh and James Franklin and the rest of the top coaches.
Yep.
So moving on to a guy that might be a little boring to some, but number 4, Kirk Ferentz of Iowa. I mean, he's done an outstanding job in his career there. The team itself can be quote unquote boring. I mean, not just me saying that, but they're constantly churning out 9-win seasons. That's good at Iowa. They've won 3 straight bowl games, 10 wins this past year. He keeps developing the talent that he has. They're not bringing in like amazing recruiting class, but he continues to develop them. And he can't always quite get over the hump in terms of the Big Ten. Like, they can't quite win that Big Ten title, but they're always relevant and respected in the conference.
Yeah, to me, this is similar to like Mike Gundy. Kirk Ferentz teams are just always good, and there doesn't seem to be any signs of him slowing down. Iowa has finished 3 of the last 5 seasons in the AP Top 25. So you look at Ferentz's most recent 5 years, it's a bit better than even the 5 years before that. So I think that's a good sign, and why he's not like a Gary Patterson or Mark D'Antonio last year, where you start seeing him slip down the lists.
No, exactly. That's the thing. It feels like the program, you mentioned the last 5 years compared to the 5 years before that. It seems like he's taken it to that next level where Iowa, I mean, they're for real. They don't beat any win against Iowa seems this nowadays is a good win. They're tough to beat. They have a great kind of culture set in place, but it seems like even the recruiting has taken an uptick. They had a pretty solid 2020 class and even better start to the 2021. Kirk Ferentz, it seems like he's getting better every single year, but just like a little bit. So, yeah,
it's a fine wine.
It is a fine line, but he's done a great
fine
job.
Wine. Better with age.
It's just I'm jealous. I wish there was some. I wish that consistency and that level of, I guess just that level of consistency is something to. You should shouldn't take for granted almost.
Yeah. Ryan,
Iowa.
Ryan, do you want to talk about that recruit that Nebraska lost anymore? Is it still weighing on you?
Yeah, Avante Dickerson. He chose Minnesota, and he wasn't even really in his final group of 3, but randomly he chose Minnesota. It was supposed to be between Ohio State and Nebraska, but then randomly.
All right, we're moving on here. Gonna interrupt Ryan there. Number 3
My life
on
is
the
over.
list. What did you say?
Nothing.
Okay, I legitimately did not hear you. But
No, I'm just kidding.
Number 3 is Ryan Day at Ohio State. Only been a head coach for 1 year, but Ryan, you had him number 1 in the Big Ten. Why?
Did you not watch Ohio State play this year?
I did.
They were incredible. They were better than the Urban Meyers. I think they were better than the national championship team of Ohio State's 2015. I think they had. They were better than that team, in my opinion. Justin Fields was flawless. J.K. Dobbins was insane. The defense was significantly better than the year before. And I give Ryan Day credit for all of that. I mean, he's just made the right decisions. He pushed the right buttons. Even after the turmoil of the ending of the Urban Meyer era, it was kind of an uncertain time, and you weren't sure what you were going to get from Ohio State because they weren't all that great last year. Heck, they almost lost to, Nebraska, but they just weren't very good. I mean, they had a solid record, but they just weren't that good. They had a lot of close games. And then Ryan Day took them to another level. They're recruiting this 2021 class on another level, even better than the Urban Meyer days. They're number one in the nation right now and actually have a legitimate chance to finish number one. So I think he's taken Ohio State to another level even than they were. So to me, that's incredible. I think he's the best coach in the Big Ten, and he's proven it. And I don't blame him for losing to Clemson. Yeah,
no.
And so it's the best Ohio State team that I've seen in the last, even including the Urban Meyer days.
Yeah, I mean, it's this one. I don't blame you for putting him number one because it's sort of like Lincoln Riley after year one. There was really no reason to think that OU was going to slow down. So even though it had been just 1 year, just kind of getting ahead of the 8 ball and saying Lincoln Riley's a top 5 coach probably, of course, would have been a smart thing to do. Same with Kirby Smart after year 2 at Georgia. But, for me, it's just I had the other 2 guys we'll get to ahead of him, Jim Harbaugh and James Franklin, because each of them has done, I think, tougher jobs. They've inherited multiple bad situations and made the teams good. So I think that's more impressive.
Let's not pretend, though, that Michigan State or Penn State are bad jobs. It's not that hard to make those teams good.
No, but here's the thing is Ryan Day inherited arguably the best team anyone could ever inherit. Like, I would honestly say that maybe only Larry Coker at Miami in 01 inherited a better team.
Nothing compares with Larry Coker. But yeah, no, that's true.
I mean, so that's where I'm just saying that in a couple years, he could no doubt be number one. I just want him to prove it to me that he can actually run the program. I mean, there's no reason to see that this train's going forward. Like, Ohio State's not slowing down because, like you said, Ryan, they're just recruiting like crazy. Like, they're going to be good, but I still want to just see it a couple more years and see what he can do on his own.
Yeah, because the question I kind of asked myself when trying to decipher between these 3 is like, okay, let's just take some random school, because it's hard to separate Ryan Day from his situation at Ohio State. It is a very, very good situation. Let's put all 3 of them at Eastern Michigan. Let's put, individually, who am I most confident is going to turn Eastern Michigan into a really good team? I've seen Harbaugh do it, at a very struggling Stanford team. I've seen James Franklin do it at Vanderbilt. So, and of course they went on to then again do it at their respective schools right now. So that's why. But
it's a different. You can't just. It's apples and oranges a little bit there. You can't just say, because Jim Harbaugh obviously has the cachet of Jim Harbaugh. The name Jim Harbaugh carries more weight than it does Ryan Day. Doesn't mean he's a better coach. Now, given the situation, Ohio State, it kind of sells itself. You don't have to worry about what your name is as the coach. You're going to be able to do all those, recruit and get good talent. But can you coach it? Ryan Day has proven, well, at least in 1 year, that he was a remarkable coach. Jim Harbaugh, he has the name, yes, he has the cachet, but can he get to that elite point that a Ryan Day got a team? I just feel like you can't just, I don't know. It depends on the fit. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of coaches that could have. Ryan Day pushed the right buttons. I'm not disagreeing, but there's a lot of coaches who could have had success with that team last year. But that's maybe I'm punishing him for that. But
yeah,
that's just the way I looked at it.
I do think in like 3 or 4 years, or maybe even sooner, Trey, you and I, if someone comes back and watches this episode, if you're in the future, sup? How's it going? I hope things are good. But I think we're probably going to look stupid here trying to argue for.
Well, no, because that's different. It's different. Like, if I had to predict it, I'm very confident that Ohio State's going to be good in 2 years.
Yeah.
So that'd be 3 years of Ryan Day. But I was just kind of trying to, like you say, in the vacuum, like right now, that's where I'm looking. That's why. But yeah, if I had to project, I know Ohio State's going to be good in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So
yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
It is tough.
That was a great conversation, guys. I really appreciated that.
Alrighty, moving on to number 2 then. We got Jim Harbaugh, Michigan. So we all had, every single one of us had James Franklin ahead of Harbaugh. by one spot in our rankings. I mean, it was hard to decipher between those two guys, Harbaugh and Franklin. There's not a whole lot separating them. So I guess I'll just ask you, Mike, is there any particular reason that you attributed to putting Franklin just one spot ahead of Harbaugh?
I mean, I can get to it, but I essentially flipped a coin because you're right. Let's talk about the ways that they're similar. So both of them, their last two college jobs were so eerily similar. Their first at an academic institution that is, had fallen on hard times, or in Vanderbilt's case, has just kind of always had hard times. But both of them took those programs and elevated them to levels that people really didn't think was possible. So both did similarly great jobs at Stanford and Vanderbilt. And then now their current jobs, I'd say Michigan and Penn State were kind of in similar-ish situations. They, at this point, are similar in terms of program prestige. And if you look at SP+, Sagarin ratings, recruiting rankings, Jim Harbaugh and James Franklin have basically done the same thing. I gave the tiebreaker to James Franklin because they have won a few more games over the past few years.
And they beat Ohio State.
They did beat Ohio State. But, I mean, head-to-head, Franklin and Harbaugh, the last 4 years, they're 2-2. So it was just so hard to separate.
Yeah, it really was. I've always just I've been a fan of both these coaches, but I've been a Franklin guy. I think, it was a tough situation to walk into at Penn State, and it was not like he started out great. He was a little under fire in his first year, but he turned him around really quick. He actually won the Big Ten. He beat Wisconsin in the Big Ten title. I just love his passion. He's just a great coach. And the other thing that's unfair to Harbaugh, and we've talked about, is so many people harp on the fact he hasn't beat Ohio State, but it's true, obviously. But the ball gets spotted an inch back, and he beat him. The narrative is just because of that one game, and he's still a great coach. Like any program would want him.
And a couple heartbreaks for sure. The Michigan State punt thing.
Yeah, exactly. He's a few heartbreaks away from the narrative around it, because the narrative around him is, Harbaugh's overrated, yada yada. But I don't know. I think
those two games that we're talking about, and he's like elite. And
because he might have been in the playoff in what was that, 2016? That Ohio State.
Yeah, I forget the years, but
I forget the year, but I think that was it.
It's okay.
Well, then moving on to number one, not really a shocker here, James Franklin at Penn State. I think we kind of just had that discussion. Does anybody have anything to add about Franklin?
I just the 2 years he had at Vanderbilt, going 9-4, those last 2 years, it was just those were that's impressive, man.
I know, when you really sit back and think about that, that's pretty amazing.
Come on. In his second year, he got to 9 wins at Vandy. That was impressive. I was flipping a coin, obviously, between those two as well, but I just feel like it's harder to win at Vandy than it is at Stanford, because the SEC is so much better than the Pac-12. So that's just why. That was my only reason for the difference between Harbaugh and Franklin, and because Franklin somehow managed to beat the Buckeyes.
Yeah, and could have beat him another time if he hadn't run the ball on 4th and 7 or whatever it was. But yeah, he's had some questionable decisions. But all right, let me ask you guys a question. We did the Big 12 yesterday, and we had Lincoln Riley number 1. Would you rather have James Franklin or Lincoln Riley?
James Franklin.
Oh, really?
I just think he's a more proven recruiter at this point than Lincoln Riley.
I'm not sure why you say that. But
I guess it's tough. I mean, I guess if you ask me the question, who would I want to build a program, I'm more confident in James Franklin because I know he's done it.
Whereas that's
Riley
kind of the deal, I guess. That was
took the keys and ran.
Yeah, that was kind of my argument. What were we talking about? We were talking about Ryan Day compared to Jim Harbaugh. If you're talking about a coach that can take over like a program that's already established, maybe I would say Lincoln Riley, because I know he's got the X's and O's and he's elite in that category. But if you're talking a program that needs a complete rehaul, then I would rather have James Franklin.
It's interesting. That's interesting. I still would take Lincoln Riley just because you have him and you see his fingerprints on the team. Like, his offenses are the best in the country because of him. It's pretty
That's true.
obvious.
That's a good point.
But I guess it's more legitimate argument than I thought, because I thought you guys were all going to say Lincoln Riley, but that's interesting. Okay. All right, let's show for our YouTube viewers the final list here in the Big Ten. Any thoughts you guys have looking at this list overall?
I mean, I just, to me, as far as conference strength of head coaches, I think this is one of the best. I mean, between Big Ten, SEC, it's hard to decipher in my eyes which is the best. I might give the edge to the SEC at this point. They have those top 5 at the SEC are pretty dang legit, as we'll get to in a couple episodes here. But I mean, the bottom 2 guys are about the only 2 guys that I think can't be successful. All the other 12 guys I think could be.
Yeah,
it's pretty impressive list.
Yeah,
Scott Frost at 8 now.
True. I think the SEC has a bigger lead than you're kind of insinuating.
Yeah, maybe so.
There.
I guess the SEC. I would pick the SEC, but
yeah,
I think the Big Ten is second.
Possibly. I think Big 12. I'd have to. It's tough when we're kind of just going off the cuff here, but Big 12 is pretty good too. I think they at the bottom are maybe stronger than the Big 10 is at the bottom, but yeah, Big 12 or Big 10.
Well,
is
after going through just makes it not fair.
After going through the lists of kind of all the conferences, when you think of the Big 12, just not coaching wise, just in general, you kind of just think, okay, well, it's Oklahoma and Texas. But then you really dive into the coaches, it's a pretty impressive list when you look at it. So that's where the Big 12 impressed me. I'm not saying they're the best, but it was more impressive than I anticipated.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. That'll do it for our Big Ten coaching rankings. As always, we'd appreciate it if you could help us spread the word about the show. Retweet us when we post the episode on Twitter. Share our posts on Facebook. If you are a member of a college football message board, throw a link in there, especially if it's a Big Ten board. Why not? We'd really, really appreciate that. And we will be back tomorrow with the conference in our neck of the woods here in Southern California, the Pac-12, the Conference of Champions. So we'll talk to you then.
Bill Walton.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the College Football Bros. If you have any questions for the next podcast, email them to collegefootballbros@gmail.com. To keep up with the brothers on social media, like them on Facebook at College Football Bros, follow them on Instagram at College Football Bros, and for their commentary on Saturdays, follow them on Twitter at CFB Bros. Thanks for listening.